How's it going, everyone? Hope you're all having a great day so far and are staying safe out there. An interesting question that comes up a lot is what game will come out after Doom Eternal? We may be far away from another title from id Software, but in this video, I'll be talking about the possible games that could be released down the road. Keep in mind that Bethesda and id Software are two different companies, so many of the games such as The Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield are not being worked on by id Software. Before we get going, I just want to say thank you for all the support on the channel, and if you are new here and love everything about Doom and similar content, then you are in the right place. Let's try to get this video up to 1,000 likes so we can get the video out there and help the channel out. Okay, let's get started. As of recently, id Software has been very successful with the release of Doom Eternal and will continue to support the game for many more months and possibly even years down the road. The Doom franchise is full of so much content and possibilities of future installments, reboots, or even remakes if needed. However, the possibility of having a new Doom game within the next few years may not necessarily be something we'll be exposed to yet. Doom Eternal, of course, will be supported by way of future DLCs for the campaign and battle mode, both of which will allow a ton of content to keep us busy for quite some time. id Software has always been innovators in technology and games, and I believe they will surprise us with either a completely different franchise or remake a game that a lot of fans have wanted for many years. One such title that comes to my mind would be something from either Heretic or Hexen. Both of these games were really fun to play back in the day and are still fun to play in the present. For those who haven't had the opportunity to play those games, a quick rundown of the story is that Heretic is set in a fantasy medieval time period where three demons named the Serpent Riders conquered the world of Pathoris, and you play as an elf named Corvus. Throughout the game, you encounter many enemies from hell and defeat one of the Serpent Riders named Desparel, who was the weakest of the three. The other Serpent Riders are found within the games Hexen and Hexen 2, but you play as a different protagonist within those games. The games are much like the original Doom games, such as the weapons, enemies, and game engine, at least in both Heretic and Hexen. Hexen 2 used a modified version of the Quake engine. There is a Heretic 2 out there and follows the story of Corvus. However, the game is a bit different as it is in third person, and the story is out of place compared to the other games. All of these games have so much potential to find themselves in a reboot or remake of some kind. However, we may not actually get anything like this ever. The reason I say that is because the other developer that helped id on those games were Raven Software, and they still have the rights to them. Since Raven is mostly doing things with Call of Duty games these days, I honestly don't think we will ever get a reboot of some kind from this franchise. Of course, there is always the possibility of id Software creating something completely new that is very comparable to Heretic and Hexen. There is the game Amid Evil that was the spiritual successor to Heretic with some hints of Quake, so it's definitely something to consider. To me, that would be awesome to have a new franchise to work on from the ground up and be popular throughout the years. I really think that it could be possible given the track record of id Software and how great they are at making video games. Considering Mick Gordon is not working with id Software anymore, a new audio composer could really shine on a new IP, and with enough exposure and popularity, the fans may be okay with them doing the audio for the next Doom game. I've said this many times in other videos of mine, and I really think Andrew Holschel could really make it work being the new audio composer for future id games. He has done a fantastic job on games like Amid Evil and Dusk, and with the amount of experience working on those games and other potential future id games, I would totally be down with him doing the music for the next Doom game. What do you guys think about that? One other game that could potentially come out within the next few years could be a Rage 3. The most recent installment of the Rage series was a combined effort by both id Software and Avalanche Studios. Rage 2 continued the story from Rage 1, where an asteroid hit the Earth, creating a post-apocalyptic world where the survivors are either mutants, bandits, the Resistance, and the Authority. This time, though, it is set 30 years after the events of the first game, and the developers made it so that you don't necessarily need to play the first game in order to understand the plot. In Rage 2, it was more open world than its predecessor, but still focused on first-person combat. This time around, you also get to choose between a male and female protagonist, and the story was a bit more in-depth than the first game. Along with the first-person combat, vehicle combat and abilities were a big focus on the sequel.
Come back soon, Walker.
The game was relatively good, but many people got bored of it after completing it for the first time. It was only a single player game and did have some DLC content, but after that, not too many people stuck with it. I may be the only one saying that, but for me, I really enjoyed it, but of course got bored before the first DLC came out. The game took advantage of Avalanche's Apex engine, and with that, the game actually looked really good. Some people argue that the world didn't have enough enemies to encounter, but id and Avalanche made some post-launch adjustments to help with the lack of enemies. Overall, Rage 2 was a a great game in my opinion, and id Software could potentially make another Rage game based on the criticism that they received from Rage 2. The game did have quite a bit of lore and does have a lot of potential, so I think that there definitely could be another game. When Rage 2 was announced, it was really a surprise, as a lot of us never really expected a sequel to Rage to ever happen. For all we know, Avalanche and id could be working on the third game right now. There have been some gaming news outlets saying how Tim Willits was eager to make a third game, but with his departure from id Software, it'll be interesting to know who will take the lead in creating a game if Bethesda gives them the green light to move forward with it. Another game that makes a ton more sense to work on would be something from the Quake series. The Quake games, other than Doom, have been a huge fan favorite and has been very successful in terms of mod support, competitive multiplayer, and, well, nostalgia. The interesting thing about Quake is that most of the games are kind of all over the place. The first game is completely different from the others, where you play as the protagonist, Ranger, and go through a slipgate fighting nightmarish creatures. Quake 1 was a breakthrough in technology at the time, as id created the Quake engine, which many other games used that engine, such as Hexen 2. It had a lot of similarities to the original Doom games, where the guns were in the classic middle pose, and the UI was very similar to the one that Doom had, where you could see the face of Ranger. It had episodes and levels and had 2 major bosses. Overall, it was a unique game, but the other games had more consistency to them as far as the story. Quake 2 and 4 were about an alien race named the Strogg, who are much like the Borg from Star Trek, where they assimilate any fallen foe and convert them into their fighting force using augmentations. Quake 2 takes place at the Strogg's homeworld of Strogos during the first human invasion. The Strogg first attacked Earth prior to Quake 2 and left the planet scarred and nearly defeated the human race. A lot of the invasion on Earth is mentioned within enemy territory Quake Wars, which was somewhat of a spin-off. Quake 3 was an online-only game that really popularized the whole online deathmatch scene and had little to no story to it. Quake 4 was a continuation of the second game, where you play as Matthew Kane, a Marine who ends up becoming a Strogg during the game and ultimately defeats the Macron, who is the leader of the Strogg. Finally, we have Quake Champions. This is mostly a revamped version of Quake 3, but it has more playable characters and even involves the Doomslayer among others. All in all, the Quake games have done well throughout the years, but knowing if we will ever get a new Quake game would be a mystery at this point. Quake Champions is still relatively new and is still being supported, so I don't think id Software will want to create another game that will get in the way of their competitive multiplayer scene. That could be another reason why Doom Eternal didn't have a typical deathmatch, as it would have driven players away from Quake Champions. So if id Software were to create a new Quake game, it would have to be more single player focused. Either Quake 1 or Quake 4 would be the candidates. At this rate, we have seen so many remasters of old games that Quake 4 could have that type of treatment. The game released back in 2005 after Doom 3, but it still actually holds up really well in terms of graphical performance. However, the game ended on a cliffhanger, so there is the possibility of a sequel to that game. I really enjoyed Quake 4 and it was somewhat well received, so having some kind of continuation after that cliffhanger would make a lot of sense. Of course, a lot of fans in the community preferred the Quake 1 style, and a remake or even a reboot of some kind would be something that a lot of people would rather see come to light. In all honesty, id Software could do what they did with Doom and go ahead with a soft reboot of the franchise using either story as the foundation. I think it would be cool to have some of the style from Quake 1 mixed with the story from both Quake 2 and 4, making the lore way bigger and using the id Tech 7 engine to their advantage. I think it is definitely time for a new Quake game, and what do y'all think about that? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section. Whatever id Software decides to do after Doom Eternal, I will always be supportive of their decisions. They are among the best gaming companies out there who really listen to their fans and create the best games out there. They've revolutionized the first-person shooter genre and are able to optimize their games to the fullest by having some of the brightest and intelligent people in the world. With everything going on throughout the world right now, the future can be a bit obscure right now, but if we all come together and make things right, we can soon get back on the path of normality. I try not to be too political on this channel, as I just want to focus on gaming, but I want to leave you with my thoughts to respect each other and look out for one another. We're all in this together. Other than that, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and be sure to let me know what you think about the next game after Doom Eternal. I'm really curious to know what you all have to say about this topic, so leave a comment down below and share this video so it can reach others throughout the community to get the conversation going. Also check out my social media accounts at RipNtear Gaming to see other things over there. I really appreciate all the support on the channel, and you guys are all awesome. Until next time, fellow Slayers, don't forget to rip and tear. Peace.